Welcome to the Mamaverse, the ultimate self-care experience for all mamas. In the Mamaverse, we have activities to help you feel better about yourself in physical wellness, emotional wellness, mental wellness, and spiritual wellness. Today, super excited. I have my friend Sheree coming on. She's a gut and hormone specialist. She is also a nutritionist, life coach, and holistic. She's really into holistic wellness, very passionate, very knowledgeable, super energetic, and I'm so excited to have her join us. Hello. Hi, Sheree.
Hi.
Hey, how are you?
How are we? I'm so good. How are you?
I was just doing a little intro and a little hype, but please, do you want to do a quick intro to everybody that is watching?
Well, hi, lovelies. It's so great to be here on the Mamaverse. I am Sheree from Sheree Wellness. I am a holistic wellness coach, but also a holistic nutritionist, and I specialize in women's gut health and hormone health at all the various stages of life, because it is really quite the journey. But I absolutely adore working with moms.
Yes. Oh, we have so many questions. My team specifically was like, "Can you ask Sheree this? Can you?" I'm like, "Okay, just like write it down." I'll try to get to it. So Sheree, have you always been into holistic wellness, or how did you start down this journey?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something that I think may come as a surprise if you haven't heard my story before, but to those that are watching. But my journey actually started when I was 22 months old, not years, months.
Oh, wow.
I was diagnosed with an autoimmune condition, and so my whole life actually was very much into the medical side of things, and went down the whole pharma route, and everything is by the book in that respect. I jumped on the hormonal contraceptive pill, all that sort of thing, and so I really wasn't into the holistic health at all. I took as many antibiotics as I needed to as a kid. I was very much like, I have to do everything by the book because I have this condition where my body attacks itself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was always into wellness. Like, I had the most beautiful example of my mom. She was someone that went to the gym all the time. She was constantly making sure we ate all the right foods, or the right foods back then.
Yeah.
But the journey into holistic health really started when I hit burnout. And I know this is something that, yourself, you talk about a lot, and it's a struggle for so many women. And I suddenly realized that all this traditional Western medicine and that is not helping me. Like, what is actually going on in my body? And I knew I needed some real answers. And when I started exploring the holistic and functional medicine pathways, I was suddenly open to, wow, this stuff works. This actually is where the results happen.
Mm-hmm. So what was it that triggered the burnout? Was it like when you were in college, or was it later on in adulthood?
Yeah, so I was on the OCP, so the oral contraceptive pill, which takes its toll after a number of years. I truly believe it's not ever just like one thing. It's always an accumulation. Mm-hmm. I was at university. I was also working full time and just started my own business. And so it was like,
while you were in school? Yeah. Wow, good for you. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, there was me, 21, like wondering why my body was freaking out, and I was tired all the time, and then wide awake in the evenings, and my body wouldn't shift any weight. My bowel movements were all over the place. I was actually having like night sweats, like you would get during menopause at 21.
Oh, wow.
My body was just freaking out.
Oh, and so did you like go to the traditional Western doctor to see what was happening and they just prescribed more medicine, or did you kind of like start researching yourself and going down a more natural holistic journey that way?
Well, it all started when I started to notice all of the symptoms, obviously, and I was like studying nutrition at the time. Mm-hmm. And they weren't able to give me the answers, and I was like, this is bizarre. How can I not have the answers right in front of me? I'm literally spending 4 years of my life studying the nutritional side of stuff. And it wasn't. It was eat grains, drink the dairy, like the very old school, didn't matter about sugar, like fat's bad. I'm like, how outdated is this stuff? And so I honestly don't know how it popped up into my world, but a clinic nearby, obviously listening as they do, on Facebook, and I went to a seminar, and that seminar changed my whole life in terms of how I looked at health and well-being. It answered all the questions that I had as to what was really going on in my body, and from there I got a mentor who was able to help me really do the deeper healing work, and everything changed from there.
So what was like the first step that you took, like a tangible step? You're like, all right, actually dairy is not good, or I'm going to get off these like birth control and that kind of stuff, which by the way, so many women have told me that like their experience of how using oral contraceptives like later on, especially who are older, like really messed them up, and being able to even conceive later when they wanted to and all of that. It's like so sad.
It breaks my heart.
And like as a teenager, as a young girl, they're just like, oh yeah, just like for your acne, for your cramps. It's just so like nonchalant, like, yeah, just get on it. And these kids are what, 15, 14, so young. And it's kind of scary, like how they're just, you know, and I don't know, as parents, it's like, maybe we should know, but I mean, we trust our doctors, right? So
you do.
Yeah.
You do. And that was me. I was 14 and on the OCP, and that was for my acne. And my mom didn't know it. It was handed out like candy. And if you look at a lot of the research now, the two most potent drugs, which is something like, you know, your OCP and antidepressants, are given out to teenage girls. Like, and we're wondering why there's so many issues going on, because the pill quite often drives either anxiety or depression. It's just insane. And so to answer your question around the first step that I took, I literally had a sit-down consultation with my mentor, and she said to me, she's like, this is what it's doing to your body. And I was like, what? And I stopped that day. I didn't care what I had to do. I didn't care about the side effects of coming off it or anything like that. I wasn't having that in my body anymore. As soon as I knew what it did, I was like, I'm done. I'm out. I don't want this.
Wow. So then was it like, now looking at your diet was like the next steps, I'm guessing?
Yeah, it was diet, it was supplementation. The beautiful thing about holistic health is that, again, there's never like one thing. It's how is your stress levels? How are your relationships with yourself, with your body, with food, with partner, with, you know, friendships? It's how is your sleep? How is your food? How is your exercise? I was over-exercising massively. And that was driving to the burnout. But it's because I was trying to lose weight at the time. And I was like, well, I can't seem to shift any weight. I just had to exercise more. I was eating such little amount of calories. Like, my body was, like, all of these things were contributing to the burnout.
Yeah. Man, it's kind of crazy what people do. And a lot of, I feel like young women, they feel the pressure of what they see online. It's like, oh, she's, I don't know, looks great, super skinny. I'm just going to like not eat. And actually I've been told, like, because a lot of women actually undereat, that they actually slow down their metabolism, and they can't lose weight because of that. So like, you actually have to eat more, and you actually have to like lift weights, and like, you're not going to bulk, like all these things that like we grew up thinking like was bad. And it's kind of too bad. Like, it's kind of sad that we were kind of like brainwashed, I guess, to think a lot of that. But yeah, but at least we're like, you know, we have people like you and on social media trying to like share a positive message and share a different viewpoint. So we are thankful for that.
Yeah, it's really like, you know, my mission is to help wake women up to the health that they can have, and not what they've been told they have to do and how they have to live. And the whole calorie equation, the whole idea that you eat less and move more, really is so outdated. It was, you know, I'm not sure if you're aware, but it was actually designed during the World War to make sure that people didn't starve. It wasn't designed way back then going, let's make sure that people don't put on weight. Like, it was designed during a time of crisis where they wanted to make sure they were giving people the bare minimum so they wouldn't die.
No, I had no idea. Oh my gosh. So I know you're like a wealth of knowledge on all of this. So what do you feel like women struggle the most with when it comes to their hormones and gut health?
Oh, I would say stress is probably, people are either unaware of the effect that the stress is having on their body, because the stress is ultimately what drives the burnout. The stress also has a heavy impact on how your microbiome and your gut health actually functions. And we know now through all of the research, the connection between the gut and the brain through the vagus nerve is something that impacts our mental health dramatically. But it doesn't just go one way. If the mind is stressed, it tells the gut that the gut's stressed, and it can cause and trigger inflammation. It can cause food intolerances. It can cause our immune system to be suppressed. And so I think the biggest epidemic at the moment is the level of stress that women are under, trying to do it all, and they can have it all. You know, like, you can be a business owner, you can be, you know, going after your career, you can be a mom, you can be an amazing wife, but it's managing that stress and preventing that burnout or that ill health from your gut being out of whack, or the spiral that it sends your hormones into. That's really key.
Okay. Yeah, I guess I didn't really realize the connection between your gut health and stress, but it sounds like, after speaking with a lot of different people in different areas of wellness, that stress really triggers a lot, and not good things, not necessarily good things too. And I've been working on, even myself, I'm trying to work on my stress levels, and I say now I feel pressure, but not necessarily stress. But that's taken a lot of work to figure out in my own mind.
It's huge. It really is. And it's, you know, I see one of my clients was watching, and the same thing happened with her, was the perception of stress. So our body, regardless of whether it's real stress in terms of your life being in danger, and you're being chased down the street by a tiger and you actually could be in a life-threatening situation, or you open up your inbox and there's 100 unread emails and you're going, your body responds the same.
Interesting. Okay.
And so if the body is constantly being communicated, whether you're stuck in traffic, whether you've got an overload of emails, whether you've got a kid screaming at you, whatever the stress is, your body still produces your cortisol really high levels. And then the body has a lot of negative effects as a result of that, in terms of increased inflammation, increased gut issues. The body goes into a spiral, throws your hormones out of whack. And that would be fine. Like, stress is healthy. We actually need stress, but we don't need it in the first thing when we wake up.
Yeah.
When we spill our coffee on the way to work, when we're stuck in the traffic jam.
Yeah.
It's every moment of every day we're living in this perception of, I'm overwhelmed, I'm stressed. The stories we tell ourselves, right?
Yeah.
That adds to the stress.
Yeah.
So
I get it.
Huge.
I see it. So I can see how it's like, okay, if my mind is stressed, then my body's gonna be stressed. But if my body's stressed, my mind will become stressed too. So then I guess your approach is then figuring out your gut and your diet and how to at least set yourself up, your body, so your body's not stressed. Can you talk more around that?
Yeah. So
I'm so curious. It's I don't really know much about this. So I have a questions that my team has written down. I'm okay, I'm going to try to get through them too. But yeah.
Yeah. So the main stress that we have in our bodies, if it's not coming from our mind, is through our food or our exercise. So exercise itself is a stress. And a lot of people don't quite understand that. You're putting your body into a state of high stress when you're working out. And that's great. But we have two nervous systems, essentially, right? Two prongs of the same nervous system. One's the parasympathetic, which is your rest, digest, repair, reproductive state. That's our kind of calm and zen. We've got our sympathetic nervous system, and most people live predominantly in this one. This is living in your fight or flight. And so we want to spend about 23 hours a day in your parasympathetic, and maybe 1 hour if you're exercising in your sympathetic. That's kind of how the balance should be. the reason we get stressed and flared up is one, because we're not actually chewing our food properly. So a lot of the time people are like, I'm eating all the right things. I'm not having the gluten, because gluten's a really big inflammatory agent. I'm not having too much dairy. Yep, write it down. I'm not having too much dairy. The overdose of caffeine that people have now, right? Like we're running around
Caffeine?
on adrenaline.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So I call caffeine a cup of cortisol. And our cortisol is our stress hormone. It causes the stress response in our body to go into heightened state. That's like the first thing
we drink in the morning.
Not for me. I've got my hormone balancing latte.
Oh, okay. So then, like, is tea more of like recommended over coffee then?
It's still caffeine. So I don't exactly say to people you have to give up caffeine. Mm-hmm. What I suggest you do is cut it out for 4 weeks. The first week, you'll probably go through horrific detox. It's not fun. You'll get withdrawals. So don't give up after that first week.
Oh,
then
my gosh.
Give yourself 4 weeks to let the inflammation settle, to let your energy stabilize. There is not a person that I have taken off caffeine that hasn't said my anxiety's slowed down, my whole body feels a lot better, I'm calmer, my energy's more stable, my moods are more stable. And then you can reintroduce it and find your sweet spot. You might find that 3 cups a week, you're totally fine. But that 4th cup sends your nervous system into the shakes. But we don't know until we've taken something out how much it's actually affecting our body.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Coffee's like, okay.
I know. So if that seems scary, start with the gluten. Like, don't feel like you have to do this all at once.
Okay.
But like pick like those and sugar. So you've got gluten, dairy, caffeine, and sugar. We know they all have an inflammatory effect on everybody. The degree is different. And that's why you have to be a scientist in your own body. You have to get curious about what's actually causing the issues for you.
But isn't gluten in everything?
I'm celiac, right? So like that's my autoimmune condition. So
and you knew that from like when you were a baby. Okay. Some people didn't even realize that till they were like which probably was horrific for them, like as they were eating and not knowing things. Oh my God. Okay.
Well, it's often triggered, right? Like a lot of people, they can be undiagnosed for a few years, but you quite often see it in men or women who go through a stressful or traumatic event, and suddenly it turns on the genes. So for me, I had a traumatic birth, and they reckon that's actually what triggered. Because when you're 22 months, you're only just kind of starting to eat normal food, right? You've been breastfed normally, or you've had formulas and stuff for at least the first 6 months, maybe a year. And so it wasn't until I started eating normal foods that my body went into freak out mode. So a lot of the time people who get diagnosed with celiac disease or autoimmune conditions later in life, there's a trauma attached to it.
Oh, interesting. Okay. So what would be like the first easy or simple step to like try and eliminate gluten? Like is there like a rule of thumb?
It's really like gluten is found in wheat, barley, oats, and rye.
Oh my gosh.
So for most people, if you're eating whole, real food, meat, vegetables, eggs, like if you're just eating whole, real foods, things that either grew in the ground, fly in the sky, walked on the earth, there's no gluten in them.
Oh, okay.
Right? It wasn't until like agricultural revolution came along that wheat started to be planted. And so gluten's found in processed foods like breads and cereals and, it's always hidden in little things. But if you're not eating from a packet 90% of the time, you're not going to be eating gluten.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay. And that's interesting. You said dairy is also like high inflammatory as well. We grew up thinking like, drink your, a glass of milk every day, right? So what the heck? Okay. What's up with that,
And that's not for everyone. It's not, I know. People are like, this is restrictive. And it's again, being curious. Not everyone. Like I know that I can handle small amounts of dairy, and there's different types of dairy. So you've got like A2 dairy, and you've got your typical A1 dairy. And a lot of people do better on A2, which is like sheep and goat's milk. So if you're not willing to I'm not willing to give up cheese. Let's just face it. I love cheese. And so it's like, I can pick more of the sheep and the goat's milk based cheese. I don't actually get the same inflammatory response. Dairy quite often causes constipation in people or acne and inflammation. Other people, totally fine with it. And so it's finding where you sit on the scale.
Yeah. I think I'm just more shocked about like how, I guess in school or just like on TV, we learn that like, yeah, drink your milk, and then the pyramid, like the nutrition pyramid, it's like the wheat we're supposed to eat, and then there's milk, and I'm pretty sure there's dairy in there, right?
Yeah, 2 to 3 serves of dairy.
And then like a little bit of protein. I almost feel like it should be like the opposite, right?
Yeah, so the food pyramid, believe it or not, actually has no scientific backing.
See, this like learning this stuff kind of like is upsetting, because then
it is.
Because then it's like, this is what we teach our kids to eat like that. I'm like, but that's not right. So,
and I mean, here in New Zealand, they've scratched the food pyramid, but they still teach have 5 to 6 serves of bread and have 2 to 3 serves of dairy. But there's actually no scientific backing to that. Whereas if you look into a lot of the research, it's eating more like we used to in the caveman days. Our human bodies, just like our human minds, haven't evolved that rapidly. You know what I mean? Our genes don't suddenly know how to break down this gluten grain that was introduced a few hundred years ago.
Yeah.
You look at even in like the Western world, right? So like Australia, New Zealand, all through America, where there's an obesity crisis, right? Gluten was actually concentrated fourfold during that time. So our grandparents, great-grandparents, were eating gluten that was completely different to the gluten grain that we're eating today, because they increased it so that the grain could go further, make more loaves of bread during things like the Great Depression. They never unmodified it. So now your one slice of toast is actually the equivalent of 4 slices of toast worth of gluten.
Oh, I see.
So the inflammation response is massive.
I see. Wow, you're like blowing my mind. Oh my gosh. So the reason why I'm like for me, I'm like so curious about this, because my daughter, she has eczema, and I've always wondered if it's something in her diet. And my husband has it, and then my daughter has it. And I'm like, what is it? And I try to like eliminate things, but I think maybe I don't do it for like a long period of time. I'm like, is it dairy? Is it? And it's like hard to. And she's a kid, so she wants to eat like what she wants to eat, like, you know. So it's like tricky, and I'm wondering if it has like to do with, did I eat something while I was pregnant type thing, or is it like something in the environment? Like I don't know. It's so hard to figure out.
It's normally like, and you can't rule out pregnancy issues, but like, you know, it's normally something that like their gut's not 100% happy with. And so it normally is a dairy or gluten when it comes to eczema, or a liver issue. But I'm assuming because your child's so young, it's not going to be a liver issue in a little one. So we do definitely want to look at, is it the dairy, is it the gluten? And I would just do one thing at a time. Because again, when we look at this as a science experiment, if you take both out and that clears up, you're not going to know which one worked. And you need to do it again, that simple 4-week rule. The reason we do it for 4 weeks is because the first week, you know when you get a cold or a flu symptom and you're like, at first time it hits you, it's awful, and you're kind of like bedridden, or you're out, you can't really work as much. Then the second time, it's like, if you get hit with it within that same kind of period, you're fine. You kind of bounce back within 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
So your immune system goes online full blast that first week. Then afterwards, it kind of stays online in case the threat comes back for the next 3 weeks. And then after that, the whole immune system kind of settles down. And so it's the same, because our body is having an immune response to food. So we need to give ourselves that 4 weeks to let the eczema settle down, to let the symptoms settle down, to let the immune system go, oh, we're actually okay. This threat, this gluten, this dairy doesn't keep coming back in.
So how does like your gut health connect with hormones?
Great question. So Hippocrates, who is one of my favorite philosophers, said about 2,500 years ago that all disease begins in the gut. And he wasn't wrong. You see, because 70% of our immune system lives inside our gut, if we get, and this goes for mental health as well, in my opinion, but if we get, something that flares our system up, our gut is hugely responsible for settling that down. Now, if the gut is reactive, if the gut isn't detoxifying properly, if it's inflamed, if it's got the wrong bacteria balance, like of good and bad ones, then it's going to have a cascade effect on the liver. It's then going to have a cascade effect on your hormones. Because if we can't detoxify, get the bowels moving properly to clear toxins out, that's what your stool is, right? Yes, let's talk about poop. That's what your stool is.
We're moms over here. We're like used to it. Okay, so yeah.
So if we can't clear the toxins out effectively, then it then increases the toxins then get reabsorbed into the bloodstream. Then once they're in the bloodstream, the liver's job is to filter through all the toxins and turn them into something the body can get rid of. But if we're not clearing the toxins through our bowel movements, it then gets reabsorbed into the blood. The liver has to do it all over again to try and sort out this toxic load. The liver's also trying to process other things like your hormones, caffeine, alcohol, everything else that goes into our body.
So that means alcohol is, we shouldn't be like drinking like we were when we were younger.
Yeah. Not the same not a binge level.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And caffeine.
So ultimately what happens is those toxins then get stored into our fat cells, our body's recycling these, and that then these fat cells then hold on to that toxic load. And then the fat cells can, they can grow, they can stretch, they can duplicate, they then produce more of the hormones that we don't really want in excess. Those excess hormones can't be cleared by the liver because the liver's busy trying to process the other toxins. The liver's then trying to send to the gut. The gut's not working properly. So you can see why people struggle to shift weight, why they get breakouts, or it comes out as eczema because the things aren't working properly to clear it out, clear out the toxins. So what the body do? It pushes it out of the skin. It causes brain fog. It causes menstrual irregularities.
Oh, I guess that's why when if you're eating really poorly, you could start to see it in your skin how it's like if you're eating like a bunch of like fried food and junk food for a while, you start to see like, oh, my skin's like I'm breaking out. It's like that's probably it right there. Yeah. Oh, I see. So then like for women, busy moms, like is there like a simple like tip on how to get to make sure our gut is healthy?
Yeah, I think it comes down to, and this might sound strange, but finding time for yourself. And that sounds very like that's nothing to do with my food. But if you're not taking time for you in the morning to set your day up well, and you start your day in a state of stress, then that's stressing out your gut. That means whatever you put in, the body isn't going to be able to process properly. The other thing that, I really thought about for mums is sitting down with your child if you can. I know often it's a time, and I can't speak from experience, that you normally have to, run around and clean up the house and do other things. But sit down with your child, eat when they're eating. Chew your food with the kid, like with your child, your children.
What do you mean by chewing? Like, I remember you mentioned earlier, like we're not chewing our food properly. What does that mean?
So, and those of you watching in the chat, I'd love to know if you do this. Give me a yes or no. But do you chew your food till it's liquid before you swallow? No. Do we inhale our food now? Most people have already loaded up the next mouthful of food on their fork before they've even swallowed the first one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or like you bring the bowl up, or however people eat, right? We're inhaling our food. That stresses out our nervous system as well. If you've got a piece of food that you've chewed, say this was your mouthful, 1-2 times before you swallow, right? Swallow. That then piece it's so much more load on the digestive tract. You only have one set of teeth in your digestive system, and they're right here. Yeah. If you don't chew it to something small, it puts a lot of pressure on the stomach. The stomach then has to try and break that food down, and that just lingers. So if you get bloating, if you get reflux, if you get gas, if you get irregular bowel movements, start with chewing your food, because you're taking a lot of stress off the digestive system. The body can then absorb the nutrients from that food a lot easier. It'll then pass into the small intestine, the large intestine, and the waste will go out. You'll absorb the nutrients you need. We should be chewing at least 16 to 20 times per mouthful.
Oh my gosh.
People don't do that though.
I'm just hearing about this now. What? Okay. So then you're saying like moms, we should just like at least sit with our kids and just see and make sure we're chewing our food and not inhaling food. Okay. Oh, wow.
What you eat is just as important as how you eat. And a lot of people forget that. That's why we go, oh, I'm doing all the right things with the food. I'm not putting in sugar. Like I get so many women in my inbox going, Sheree, I'm like eating all the right foods. I've cut out processed sugar. I'm not having dairy. I'm not having gluten. My bowel movements, my gut health, my whole body just feels out of whack. Are you chewing? It sounds so simple. But your body, you know those two nervous systems I was talking about, the parasympathetic and the sympathetic? It's in sympathetic if you're just inhaling your food.
Interesting. I know, like, I want to make sure, like, I get you, I don't take up too much of your time, but one more question is, what are your thoughts on, like, fasting?
Great question. So that's one that a myth I love to debunk, I guess. So when it comes to intermittent fasting, if you are a woman of reproductive age, which most mums are, right? Most mums are. A woman of a reproductive age, you're reproducing, you should not be fasting. The reason for that, because I like to explain, I love for people to understand why, not just Sheree said.
Yeah, that's okay for me. Sheree told me not to do it, so yeah.
So you can do things like, with my clients, I do a 4-day fast, which is totally different. You're resetting the microbiome, you're resetting your health, all that sort of thing, but I don't recommend doing that all the time.
Oh, you're specifically talking about IMF, like in the mornings I just don't eat or something like that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you're doing intermittent fasting, whether it's the 5-2, the 16-8, the not eating till 12, whatever you're doing, what that does is that first hour that you wake up, your cortisol naturally spikes, stress hormone. If you don't give yourself food then, within that first hour, as females, our bodies go, holy crap, there's no food left in the world. We're in starvation mode. It produces more cortisol, more stress hormone, causes the body to hold on to extra weight. That then dysregulates your hormonal cycle. So if we go for, even an hour where we're fasted, it freaks the body out. It wants to know that it's safe. The body always wants to know that it's safe and that there's food in the world and that it's going to be nourished. And so we need to stop the whole fasting. If you look at the research, was done on men.
That's right.
98% of all the research, or 96% of all the research.
Most of the people I hear talking about it are men, actually.
Yeah. And females try it. It works well initially, and then they're like, it stopped working for me. Why did it stop working for me?
That's what I noticed too. I was like, actually is not doing anything. I feel like I'm like holding on to weight. That makes sense then. Well, it's a good thing I don't do that anymore. Yeah. Sheree,
Post-menopause though is a different story, just to put it out there.
Okay.
So you virtually hormonally become a man. As awful as it sounds, that's the transition. So you can do all the things that men do in post-menopausal years. But for the women watching, the women that are moms, the women that have, got kids that are running around, they're still reproductive age. They need to shift the fasting.
Oh my gosh, that's so enlightening. Sheree, I know you have a client, like you have another meeting coming up, so I want to make sure I give you time for that. How can people connect with you, work with you, all those things? Because this was so amazing.
Thank you. So if you just want to head over to Sheree Hannah Wellness, give me a follow, reach out, connect. If there's something in here you're going, oh my goodness, can you tell me a little bit more about that? I am in my DMs all the time. I'm always happy to answer questions. Like, that is probably the best place that you'll be able to find me. I work with clients in a variety of different ways, and I'm always about making sure we find the way that works best for you. So probably best just to start up a bit of a chat. I'm here. I'm here to help. I'm here to support.
Yes. So excited. Thank you so much, Sheree. I encourage everybody to follow Sheree. I will message you later because I feel like The Mamaverse needs you and all your wealth of knowledge. I think we can do a lot of cool stuff in the Mamaverse with you. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Yes,
Talk
you too, man. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, guys.